we today, Bill?
Well, we are in Weare, New Hampshire.
Weare, New Hampshire.
Yes, not Weare, we're in Weare.
That's where we are.
Yes, where it all began.
That's right.
That's what they say. And we are an oil mill cemetery on
yeah.
Oil Mill Road. And we're here to discuss an event that happened previous to the American Revolution, and it had a great deal of helping set off that spark that started the whole thing, that started the revolution.
Yeah.
And when most people think about that, what started the revolution, one of those events, of course, was the Tea Party.
The Tea Party, absolutely.
So, of course, we know a bunch of men in Boston dressed up like Native Americans and threw tea into the harbor.
Yeah.
And that was a big deal. But right here in Weare, in 1772, there was what became known as the Pine Tree Riot. And this was not over tea. It was over lumber.
Yeah. It wasn't in very many history books, as I recall.
No, it's pretty obscure.
Yeah.
But recently it has kind of taken on a life of its own, and it's started to be talked about these days.
So the whole thing really was the trees.
Absolutely.
And these were white pine trees.
Mm-hmm.
And why were they so important was because the Royal Navy needed masts.
Yes.
And where were some of the best masts in the world? Right here in New Hampshire. And so basically the king wanted these masts for his ships, and he felt that they belonged to him. Now the people here in Weare, had another opinion on that. They thought, I mean, some of these were like 150 feet tall, and and it wasn't like they were really ready to say, well, you can have a couple of these for your house.
Right.
No, they wanted 100%. All of it belongs to the king, and especially the really good ones and the biggest ones. And even though it was on what would be thought of as private land, they were marked with the broad arrow with the 3 distinctive axe marks, which told you right from the get-go, these belong to the king. Well said, they do not belong to you. And obviously you can see how this would have probably aggravated these people. Even in today, I suspect if the state of New Hampshire came in and said all our trees belong to them, we might have another.
Yes.
So they did. They believed that the trees on their property belonged to them, and not to some king who lived 3,000 miles away. So it was kind of understandable. So for years they did kind of grumble about it or moan and groan, but under Governor Benning Wentworth, who actually did a lot of the land grants around here, he enriched himself. And he was representative of the king's government, but apparently he was fairly loose with how he treated the settlers, and a lot of them, I think, actually liked him. But when his nephew took over, John, he was more an enforcer.
1766.
Around 1766, he starts going, those trees are worth something. We're going to get them. Mm-hmm. So in 1772 is when it boiled over.
Yeah, so the trouble started right here in Weare.
Yeah.
That year, the royal officials accused several sawmill owners in the towns of Weare and Goffstown of illegally cutting down the king's reserve pine trees.
Yeah.
And they were brought to trial for it. And the mill owners hired Samuel Blodgett, who we're probably going to talk about later. He's very important in New Hampshire, to defend them.
Yeah.
So Governor Wentworth, he had other ideas. Instead of defending the lumbermen, he offered Blodgett a plum job as the king's surveyor.
Yeah, hard to turn down.
So Blodgett came back and talked to the people in Goffstown, and they go, okay, we'll pay a fine. And they got their lumber back. So that was it. But the men in Weare, no way. No, they were not interested in any type of compromise. So they had pushed the wrong button. Now, the men, they did the exact opposite. And they they didn't get their lumber back, so to speak.
No, not a chance.
Not a chance. So then one of these men was one of the mill owners, and his name was Ebenezer Mudgett.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the reason we're in this cemetery is he's probably buried here.
We're
We
making
don't know
that
for
assumption.
sure, but the complaints had been filed by the royal surveyor, John Quigley, and before long, Sheriff Benjamin Whiting showed up to arrest Mudgett and some of the other men who were involved in
That's correct.
absconding with the king's trees. So they were released on bond.
Yeah, or
before
bail,
or bail, yes. And but they were furious. Now Mudgett went home apparently, and went to bed. But sometime in the early morning, a bunch of his neighbors were very much upset, and they arrived at his house. And together, those men and Mudgett, they went to the inn where the sheriff was staying.
Yeah, and even before the sun came up, April 14th, 1772, I guess there was about 20 of them. They got together, and several members also of the Quimby family, apparently, along with Mudgett. And oddly enough, they didn't go get their flintlocks or their guns. May not even had any, in that point. Who knows? But instead, they armed themselves with switches, tree branches, and they marched with intention, I'm guessing.
Yes, very much.
Right over to Quimby's Tavern, which we did visit a little earlier, and where Sheriff Whiting and Deputy John Quimby were spending the night. And they burst, apparently, into their rooms, and they dragged the two of them out of bed. Must have been a bit of surprise. And they gave them something to remember.
Oh, yes.
So apparently, they didn't want to kill him, but they gave him a good switching.
Yeah, say the least.
And it was definitely meant to send the message. Because, we don't want you here. And, and even before the sheriff left town, apparently they clipped the mane and the tail of his horse.
Yes.
His poor horses, which is one final insult. I guess a little like letting the air out of someone's tires nowadays. I don't know. But the warning was pretty quick, pretty clear. The people of Weare had had enough of the British interference and wanted them out. Sheriff Whiting, by the way, did later remain a loyalist,
yes,
and fought for the British during the Revolution, which is probably not a huge surprise, but it's hard to tell because a lot of these people that became revolutionaries were once staunch supporters of the British. So what happened then?
Well, it did go to court. The men were arrested, as you might expect, and it went to court. And the authorities couldn't ignore it. Obviously, this was a real insult to the royal governor. So they were brought to trial, and they went to Superior Court in Amherst.
Yeah.
And the judges included Theodore Atkinson, Leverett Hubbard, William Parker, and one name that would become very important in New Hampshire's history, and that is none other than Meshach Weare.
Who's in our book?
Yes, Meshach Weare is in our book, and that should sound familiar to you if you have the book.
Yes.
So during the Revolution or after the Revolution, he became our first governor or president. So he was very, very much important. And during the Revolution, he kept things going, government in New Hampshire.
Essentially ran the state of New Hampshire.
Yes, he did. So he's very, very important man. He's buried down in Northampton, New Hampshire. We've been there, of course. The court found every one of them, as you would suspect, guilty as charged. But the judges were rather sympathetic to him. They were not all that loyal to Governor Benning. And they handed him a slap on the wrist. They fined him
Governor
20
John
shillings.
Wentworth, yes.
John, yes. They fined him 20 shillings.
Yeah.
And court charges.
Yeah.
And they sent him on their merry way.
Yep.
So it really was a nod to those men here in Weare that Yeah, you can get away with this, which may somehow, embolden the men in Boston to start the Tea Party.
Oh, I think it makes sense if they got wind, which they probably
No,
did
I'm
a
sure
bit
it
later,
did. Yes,
that these guys had done this and got off relatively easily. That, if they did the Tea Party, they probably might be slapped on the wrist as well. But the thing that I guess, this is 18 months before the Boston Tea Party.
Mm-hmm.
And there were other types of protests and petitions and speeches and newspaper articles, all kinds of things, starting to express the problems that were happening between the king or the British government and the locals here. But this particular thing isn't often remembered at all.
No, this was true, insurrection.
Yeah. It had nothing to do with taxes.
Yeah, just trees.
Just trees. And, so they had tea or any of those things. I mean, basically, the issues of property rights, if it's on your property, government authority to come in and do whatever they want, or are they limited in some way? I mean, who owns the natural resources on your property? And, the people here in Weare obviously believe that the trees growing on their land belong to them. The British government obviously thought it belonged to the king. So, you had to come to some kind of loggerhead there when you had those two sides. But, this would all spread way beyond the forests of New Hampshire. And it is kind of interesting to think, it started right here.
So actually, today, the Pine Tree Riot is recognized as one of those earliest acts of organized resistance leading into the American Revolution. The white pine itself actually became a symbol.
Yeah.
Notice you're wearing a hat. That is actually the new state of Maine flag.
That is the Maine,
yes. There is a pine tree on there.
Yeah.
And the pine tree became a symbol of liberty throughout New England. Pine tree flags would later be carried by American forces during the Revolutionary War. The Appeal to Heaven flag with the pine tree on it.
Yeah.
You've probably seen that. It's kind of controversial today, unfortunately. But it all happened here, right here in Weare.
Yeah.
And there's a historical marker.
Yep.
It is remembered very much in the town.
Yep.
There's a historical marker where the Quigley Inn was.
Yep.
And there's also a large millstone there with a bronze plaque on it that talks about it, which we will show you some pictures of in the presentation.
Right.
So it's a reminder that one of America's first sparks of rebellion happened not in a city, but out here in the woods of New Hampshire.
Yeah. And we do have some woods.
Still do. Yes, still do.
Yeah. So it's before Lexington and Concord, before the Boston Tea Party, before the Declaration of Independence, right here in, as we've said over and over again, but I think it's an important thing to remember that this happened by with a small group of New Hampshire lumbermen and mill people that decided they had had enough. And they weren't fighting over tea and they weren't fighting over stamps. They just wanted to have some rights relative to what was on their property. One historian once said, maybe we know far more about the Boston Tea Party, basically because they had better historians.
And they had a better press.
They had a better press. And of course, they had Harvard College, and they had bigger newspapers and so on. But this place definitely deserves to be remembered as one of the first and boldest steps in American road to independence. So, if you have enjoyed today's story and you like the video, please like us on YouTube and think about subscribing. and let us know what you think and get comments.
Yeah, we
Did we
really
get it
love
right?
the
If
comments. We
there's
have
something we missed,
some great comments.
yeah.
People are always giving us a new idea, so please chime in. We like that.
Yeah, we've even done one or two recently because they were suggested
Yes,
by
exactly.
some of our followers. So we will see you next time.
Yes.
And for the moment,
yes, to those Pine Tree Rebellion men,
yeah,
some of whom are
some
here
of
for
whom
sure.
are here, some of whom are also buried elsewhere.
Yeah,
I believe,
Weare.
and most of them are in unmarked graves. But rest in peace.
Rest in peace.